you've seen that sign before if you've been in Lincoln Square. It's the Davis Theater, over 100 years old. And it is the only building left of 5 that were built in this neighborhood back in the day. Tom Barnes, Chicago scene here in the Lincoln Square neighborhood. And what do you do with an old theater when you want to renovate it? Well, you add a bar to it. And that's what the folks here did with Carbon Arc, connected to the Davis Theater. I'm going to talk to the owner right now about the renovations, the unique aspects of it, and the historical reference of a vaudeville stage, all now for the Chicago scene. Let's head inside. All right, so we're inside the Davis Theater in the original theater that has now been converted to a couple. I'm here with Ben. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Sorry about the bright light in your eye, but we are in a theater, so that's how it works.
It's all good, yeah.
So the Davis Theater, over 100 years old, one of the only one left out of 5 that were built here in Lincoln Square as far as old vaudeville houses. But that's what this was back in the day, right?
Yeah, it was originally opened as kind of like a silent film house plus neighborhood vaudeville space where the community would come together and use the stage for different kind of like neighborhood productions and stuff like that. It's crazy to think that there was 5 theaters in this small area.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of every neighborhood had a saturation in a good way of theaters and breweries. And that was kind of like a magical combination.
Still, what is old is still new, apparently now, because breweries and theaters are, I mean, that's Lincoln Square.
Absolutely.
Here we are in 2022, right?
Yeah, coming back to kind of like, I feel like we're a pretty European feeling neighborhood. There's a lot of things in this neighborhood that speak back to the original roots. It was a large Greek population, German population. So it's nice to kind of have that stuff coming back, where theaters and breweries. I won't say no.
Absolutely. And I know, reading the history about the Davis Theater, with the vaudeville and then the talkies that was converted, and then even, I believe in the 60s or 70s, where it became a really a German-influenced theater where it had a lot of foreign films, German-speaking films, and that kind of harkens to the neighborhood, right?
Yeah. Well, it was originally opened as a German film house.
Oh, okay.
It was originally called the Pershing, and Pershing was a German war hero, I think it had to be World War I, right, if it was opened in 1918.
Sure.
So it had that kind of like European flavor to it, and then it eventually converted to talkies, and then went beyond that to where we're kind of in the first half of what originally was opened as a huge auditorium, and it was quadded to make 4 theaters. So we had it then, and then we converted it to what is now the 3 theater setup.
Right, so this was shut down for a year, and to convert this all, because it wasn't a small undertaking at all. But I was here when it was the old 3 theater system set up, and it was definitely, it was a little age on it.
Need a little TLC.
Yes, I mean, you walk in, it did smell like popcorn, floors were sticky. I mean, it is what it was. But it was your neighborhood theater, and what you guys have done with it is remarkable, because you found things in the construction process, like the organ pipes and like the non-drop ceiling and what was above the drop ceiling. Talk about that experience of just finding all these relics that are now part of the charm of this place.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there was a lot of discovery, and also a lot of we're not going to know what we're going to get until we expose all of this stuff, and then also not have a realistic idea as to if the costs are feasible to restore it.
Right, nothing's cheap.
Nothing's cheap, and we wanted to really strive to try to get that landmark status, but again, not if it cost 40% more in order for us to get there. So it was a little bit, there was some stress in the discovery to try to hope that a lot of this stuff was salvageable and that could be done within the budget that we had scoped. And then there was a lot of joy when we took down the drop ceiling, when we exposed the organ pipes, and they were in such a condition where it was pretty obvious that restoration could happen within our budget. And then that part was incredible too. There's like 3 people in Illinois that are still able to do this level of building restoration that kind of like beckons back to the early 1900s. And they come in and they just do insanely amazing work. To watch this man and his son rebuild this molding was an unbelievable treat. It really was special.
And I got to imagine you had a little bit of that hidden gem, just excitement, because you're like, wow, like we loved this place before. We love it even more so because look at what we have.
Yeah, it was so incredible. I've got all these photos, and I can remember very distinctly back when the molding was originally exposed, and just knowing that it was going to end up being something so special. It was just a remarkable period of the year.
And speaking of remarkable, we're in the original theater, especially in the front here where the slope floors, and that's what you kind of did with this particular room. There's 2 more behind that are the stadium level seating that people are accustomed to, but this is kind of homage to the original space, which was one big theater back in the day.
Exactly right. So basically what we're looking at here is just the slope floor, and what would have been originally opened was just kind of a double of this, and that slope would have continued all the way back. And so it was very important for us to make sure that we preserved the original way that the front of this theater looked, in order for us to be in line with the landmark status, but also just to make sure that something got re-exposed that was such an important part of this neighborhood.
And speaking of being part of the neighborhood, you guys have added on a little bit to the theater with the food component that's kind of next door. It is next door. It's connected now. Talk about that new endeavor and how that all blends together as the new Dave's experience.
Sure, yeah. We have a full-service bar restaurant that's connected to our lobby. It's called the Carbon Arc Bar and Board. I consider it a contemporary American experience with contemporary American fare. I've got a really nice cocktail program, wine program. We check a lot of boxes. We've also got a lot of craft beer.
That whole beer and movies theater thing, right?
Yeah, you got to have it. Yeah. But anything that you can get in there, you can carry into the movie. So if you want to go grab a bottle of wine, you could grab 5.
Yeah.
We're not going to stop you.
No.
You can get a nice bottle of wine.
Sure.
Our concession's also fully outfitted with cocktails and wines as well. But there's something really special about going and getting a craft cocktail or a craft beer or a nice bottle of wine, and you're not leaving the establishment at all. You're just going to meander into your movie and have what we think is kind of a upper scale experience. And then we've also got a really cool feature in our small theater, Theater 1, where there's a bar window. So the east wall of our Theater 1 is the same wall as the back of our bar. So we cut out a bar window that we then soundproofed, but we can open it up. And for events where, maybe it's a sporting event, certainly a private corporate event, that window could be open, a customer could walk up, ring a bell, bartender comes over, and you're getting a cocktail without leaving the theater at all.
Phenomenal. That's very Chicago of you. Well done.
Yeah, just hunting down that brewery, theater experience where I can make it easier for someone to get some booze.
You're going to do it. Yeah. People wondering what kind of movies are shown here. What do you guys have as far as a gamut of movies?
So we're predominantly a first-run movie theater. That's our bread and butter. But then we also have downtimes in the season where the movies that are getting put out aren't in such a big saturation. It has its own kind of flow throughout the year. And then when we're slower, that's where we concentrate a lot on doing private events, film festivals. We have Doc 10 coming up here pretty soon this summer, which is a film festival that's dedicated to documentaries. So we work with a lot of kind of outside of the first run lanes when we know that we've got some space to try to get some other content in. Local artists, local filmmakers, all that fun stuff.
That's fantastic, Ben. And before we get out of this space, I wanted you to just give me. We were off camera earlier. You showed me a little hidden relic. Why don't we walk over there, check out the hidden relic, which is the old vaudeville stage that we were talking about earlier. Correct?
Correct. And I think if we go over to this side,
I'm going to follow you and see what we find here.
Pretty cool is you can see the stairs that go up.
Oh, look at
those
that.
are the original stairs, and then obviously the original vaudeville stage.
Look at that. There it is. Just still hiding out because he kind of had to leave it, right, to keep the landmark status of the building?
Exactly right. So part of our job was to make sure that this was covered and secured, and that it wasn't changed or adjusted. And kind of a, obvious, but at the end of the day, smart way of covering it is to put our own screen in front of it.
Yeah.
And then behind it, we know that it's always going to be kind of held there, and it's not going to get messed with or damaged or anything like that.
Phenomenal. Thank you, Ben, for taking time to show me around and to explain the importance of the Davis here in the Lincoln Square neighborhood in Chicago. For people want to know more information, what's the best way to find that?
Sure. I think it's davistheater.com, E-R, not R-E. There's a California theater that is R-E, so we don't want to step on their toes.
Got it.
And then we've also got carbonarcbar.com. We're also on social media, and all of our information is available online, and we encourage people to reach out.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, sir, and good luck with the next 100 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. That's the Chicago scene here in Lincoln Square, TBARNAS at WGNTV.com. If you have a suggestion for the Chicago scene, that's tbarness at WGNTV.com. We'll see you guys later.